They want to have an AI solution to be able to explain them.
Yep.
They want to justify why something shows up in their report.
Yeah.
And they want an AI to kind of help us craft stories. They want to summarize a lot of this legal complicated text.
Yep.
And this is all like recommendations. Like they want to know which packages should I order for the given job description.
Right.
This is all the ML and AI that our customers or a candidate sees, feel, and touch.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the external facing AI, and then we have internal facing AI as well.
Thanks so much for coming, Muskan. We are here recording the AI Adoption Playbook podcast. I'm Ravin. I'm the host. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Credal.AI. And I'm here with our very, very exciting guest, Muskan, who I'll allow to introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. So excited to be here. My name is Muskan Kukreja. I'm the head of ML and AI at Checkr, a leading tech-based background check company whose mission is to build trust between two parties.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I've had the great pleasure of getting to know you a little bit and getting to work with you a little bit since you joined Checkr. But I'm sure our audience would love to get a little bit more of that intel as well. So I'd love to just start by getting a little bit of a sense of, how do you guys at Checkr use ML and AI, both the sort of traditional ML world and then also maybe a little bit of the generative stuff today? And then we can start there and dig into some of the use cases that you find most exciting from there.
Yeah. Typically like to basically say why, so using ML and AI is not really, the first thing that we basically think about. The whole thing started with, typically this industry has been pretty boring.
Yeah.
Done by 2 or 3 providers in the world. And frankly, there was not much need for it. The employment was slow. People used to get hired in like 10, 14 days,
right.
And so forth. And it really started with this concept called gig economy, where there has been a need to, get somebody employed the same day, right?
Total sense.
And thousands of those, and not just on the tech economy, but, driving, Uber, nursing, hospitality, construction. The world has moved from like sticking to the job in 40 years to changing the job every single day.
It's crazy.
And which means we have to step back and rethink of the, current solution that is out there. And that's the main reason, the Checkr was born. And it's trying to redefine, can we establish trust between two parties, accurate thoroughness, highly quality, responses in fastest amount of time that's possible. So all our use cases that we think about is, in AI and Gen AI or ML, is basically is a particular solution. Can we revolutionize, this industry by applying ML and AI in use cases where they are applicable? And is it going to increase our accuracy? Is it going to increase our turnaround time?
Yep.
And it's going to decrease our cost, because, cost is actually a growth play. Imagine if I can offer a background check or any service like that for $1 in 5 minutes, probably you would be doing it for your landkeeper or landscaper.
Right.
So the cost is actually a growth play here.
Right.
Not really cool. that. Yeah.
Really, really cool. So just for the benefit of the audience, do you want to explain a little bit, like, what's the kind of scale that Checkr is operating at? Who are some like kind of logo customers that people will know? I know that you guys, I know you guys very well, but some folks in the audience may be more or less familiar. It'll be a little bit US, a little bit international as well. So,
I mean, a lot of these stats, could be found in our company websites. So we operate like globally, but US is basically kind of our first market.
Cool.
All the segments, SMB, from enterprise to some of the name customers like Uber, Instacart, DoorDash. So all the gig, economy that you work for, all the kings of the economy are our customers. But then we have built our solution to pretty much, for everybody. So we have, almost like, I don't know if I should have quote a number, but, a very good amount of representation from every industry, thousands and, like 6 or 7 digit thousands of customers.
Really cool.
And we'll, including consumer too.
Yeah. And I've started noticing these like big enterprises increasingly like are a big part of your customer base as well. Would be curious about sort of the transition to the enterprise kind of buyer for Checkr, and when did that type of customer become like central to sort of Checkr's portfolio of who you guys serve?
I'm not much a part of GTM, team here, but basically what I've heard is that any company who's trying to get into like specifically San Francisco, and then one of the other advantages that we are a Y Combinator born company, so a lot of ICs company who are looking into the tech space, who really have hiring faster and very accurate on their mind. It's basically right now there is no other solution which does that for us. So tech enabled companies is basically like customers who love us the most, and then we are pivoting to other industries as well. But then that's more a question for go to market company specific teams for so.
Cool. Yeah, it makes total sense. So it's probably the perfect segue actually into like talking about the stuff that probably is the most fun to talk about, right? Which is the Gen AI and ML stuff. So you're the head of Gen AI and ML. I imagine that the head of Gen AI is actually a job title that really didn't exist 2 years ago, right? So what does a head of Gen AI actually do?
Basically, thanks to my, the leaders of the company, I was basically interviewing, and this is basically like the head of ML. So it's not a Gen AI, but it's like we want to be more inclusive to ML and AI here. So what do we do? So we really, the whole mission that we started with is that, given that our company is like not a FANG company, so it's most of the engineers are very solid, dedicated. Can we? So there are a couple of people who started, in the company, starting, pushing boundaries with ML and AI. They started to see a lot of promise.
Right.
And then we thought, like, can we establish and grow that arm of the company where we can create a diverse skill set in machine learning, data science, AI, and also leverage some of our current software engineers and train them to be more AI driven and create that kind of enablement group. Basically, we have two functions, in the company. One is to uplift everybody in the company to be more AI driven, and teach them and maybe helping with their current jobs. That's like kind of our uplifting for everybody.
Like employee productivity stuff.
Employee productivity, just making sure that every part of the company is actually, because you can create tools, amazing tools like Credal, as you know, right? But then you need people who can coach and find use cases and do some sort of, the evangelism in the company. And that's why one of the big things that we did is, when I came here, we did a hackathon. And we kind of forced people, like the first day we taught them how to use AI, like prompt engineering. We taught them how to use Credal.AI, co-pilots. We trained them and how to do that. Like we had Snowflake AI and other vendors. So basically first day was all filled with training, with amazing demos. And then we let people who are closer to the product, sit down, think about the tools, think about the problem at hand, and create something out of the blue on their daily life. So that's like the enablement part that we do every quarter. We have that, but our primary other main focus is to support different pillars across the company. The focus is on two things, right? The first thing is, can we use ML and AI into different parts of the processes internal, which is not customer facing, to boost up our accuracy, to do our optimization, to reduce our cost of the searches and so forth, right?
These are like back-end processes where you guys are doing a bunch of data processing, etc.
Right.
And you're trying to make that process more efficient.
Right. Absolutely. Like, we are a data company at first, so we get data from 1,000 places. We have employee verification. We do, millions, billions of searches. So we kind of have to have that ML and AI expertise to kind of do all of that searches. So that's all AI and ML, which is outside a customer. Customer can't feel, see, and touch. They are reaping the benefits indirectly.
Makes sense.
And then we do have one of the arm which is focused on the customer itself.
Right.
Like for example, like customer, look at this complicated background check report. They want AI solution to be able to explain them. They want to justify why something shows up in their report. And they want an AI to kind of help them scrap stories. They want to summarize a lot of this legal complicated text. And this is all like recommendations. Like they want to know which packages should I order for the given job description.
Right.
This is all the ML and AI that our customers or a candidate sees, feel, and touch. Right. So this is the external facing AI, and then we have internal facing AI as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like if I understood that correctly, there's the employee productivity work, Then there's work on the back end where you're doing data processing that is benefiting the customer, but not like
Directly.
in their face necessarily. And then there's the stuff that's like literally the customer is interacting with an LLM.
Yep.
Cool. Really, really awesome. And so, yeah, one of the things that I think is really, really interesting, and I think in general, a lot of people are trying to figure out is how do you actually get an enterprise that is, thousands of people like Checkr to adopt these new technologies in a way that actually benefits their day-to-day lives. I think one of the things that's been really cool for me to see about you guys is the engagement and the level of employee sophistication, the amount of stuff that folks are doing with generative AI is awesome, right? I think you guys have like, the vast, vast majority of your company are actually like very, very Gen AI savvy and using it for their daily lives. I don't know if you have any stats on that you can share, but I'd love to get a sense from you, like, how did you guys do that, right? I think there's loads of enterprises out there that would love to be as sophisticated as Checkr is. Like, how did you guys get there?
Yeah, I mean, I have to give that to the leaders of the company.
Right.
My VP of Engineering Krista, CEO Daniel, and then like tons of leadership people. Because if a company decides to have like it has to be a top up decision. Because like if we didn't have the tool like Credal, in our company and other tools like that, then even if we wanted to do something, we couldn't do it.
You stuck, right? Yeah.
So it starts from the top, basically, acknowledging that this technology is not like a fad, but it has legs, and doing that due diligence, selecting the right tools and companies, right partners like Credal to work with us, and then provisioning that system inside the company and everybody, because it's not cheap, right? Doing that for the whole company. But then so having the right mindset is basically the first thing.
Really cool.
And then, creating like, AI enablement team. What we did is basically, set of people who will be your, power users who can uplift everybody and who can get into the use cases, uplift everybody in the company, and having that right, culture and freedom. Like, we have a lot of flexibility around how do we, reach out to, people like, Hack Week. The whole company for 1 week was not doing anything except this.
Really cool.
And even if I wanted, that could have not happened without company buy-in. That everybody, needs to spend like 1 week doing AI.
Really cool.
And we are responsible to teach people how to basically, be at the best forefront in using all of these tools.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to drill in on that. So like, that's obviously really, really awesome. It's so ambitious. I love that you guys did that. What were the sort of use cases? What were the learnings? Like, what really came out of that from a business perspective that helps Daniel and Krista, et cetera, like really keep confidence and conviction that like, hey, if I'm going to take 1,000 people and say, stop what you're doing for a week and just like play with AI, like how on earth do you persuade like the execs that that's going to be like a good thing for them to do and to keep doing over time, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, again, like, I think when I came in, this was basically Daniel and Krista's idea that, we should have, I mean, every company has Hack Week all the time. It was a very bold decision. I mean, to be honest, I was not actually sure it was a good decision because I was like, maybe we should just use a 2 tracks, an AI track and a non-AI track. But then, and a lot of like people were like, oh, I can do impact without the AI as well. And then we were like, that's true, but that we can have another, part of that. But then what we thought is, I think fixing on a learning part was like got everybody excited. So everybody, was like, when you're in SF, you go to a bar, people talking about ChatGPT, and even the smartest AI engineers, like, my partner is also in software engineering, one of the, tech companies. And I can see, when conversation of AI happens, people who don't have context, they feel out of the room. Like they feel that,
you get lost, right?
Yeah. And like, it's a big FOMO. And to be honest, when I looked at it, I was like, I think in a week, I can uplift any SWE on the planet to be like at least 30% more effective. And now they can hang on the bar and be a very meaningful conversation about the AI. I just need to have the right curriculum and right people. And that's what I think the conviction came, is that let's just force with people to actually participate
Really cool.
with a learning one.
Really
So
cool.
we spent almost 20% of the time teaching people, tools like Credal,
Yeah.
how to create co-pilots, when is it used. An amazing job. Like 25 to 30 projects came up that I would have not thought about.
Really cool.
And specifically with people who's not even tech.
Right.
That was, I think, the most amazing thing.
So cool.
People from marketing and people from different discipline who have not written a single piece of code.
Right.
Now doing co-pilots.
Yeah.
And then trying to basically uplift everybody.
Yeah, I remember at one point Credal's biggest power user was Checkr's head of legal, actually, or like head of privacy, maybe.
Yeah.
So a ton of usage from like really non-technical people. I'd love to get, a little bit deeper into the weeds of like, what are some of the use cases that you've seen that are most exciting? And maybe we can cover maybe one in each of those three buckets, right? One on the employee productivity, one on the sort of data processing backend side of things, and one on the customer facing side of things.
So there are plenty of use cases, but we can, piecemeal this problem.
Yeah.
So like, for example, when I came here, I basically, mapped my entire team into 4 pods.
Cool.
And this is because of the business unit. And it has some, resonance with how we think about the AI as well. So one part of which is, maps to the internal is, like every company, specifically heavy engineering, deals with amazing tech debt. Re-architecturing of current systems, simplifying that is a big, it's a process every company has to go through. Nobody enjoys that. And basically we have initiatives to basically, how can we simplify tech debt using AI? And these are all internal, I'm talking about it because external, there's a bunch of lists around that. So generating code is one of the biggest use cases that we are seeing.
Makes sense.
Amazon listed some crazy numbers of how AI saved like 4,500 years of development time. Google yesterday said 25% of the code is written by AI, and also forth. So like generating code and AI, and basically AI helping us with development part is basically a very critical component. And then running a background check, which involves searching for a people identity multiple places, is tons of operation work that goes in. Specifically the manual, the QA process. When something is not working, what should we do? I think the biggest use case that we have gotten success so far is how can we actually replace that manual overburden in terms of cost and time and accuracy, because humans are pretty bad in time and being accurate and being consistent, and
they get tired, they get sleepy, they get it's late, they want to get home
in US.
And it's expensive. Oh my goodness, it's so expensive in the US. And all that stuff makes a ton of sense. I think I hear that a lot. So that manual QA process, right? Today, is that like humans reading a PDF, or how does it work actually in the weeds?
So we can talk about individuals. So one of the biggest use case is we have like a whole verification arm, right? So when we do verification, we are landed up with thousands and thousands of documents, degrees to the PDFs of employer W-2s, SSN card, driver licenses, all of that stuff. So it's like OCR process, OCR tech, which has been there. But then when
did you guys find that the Gen AI stuff, like all the multimodals, like models, were helpful to you, or do you find that they're just like not really significant improvements on the traditional OCR world?
We are trying to, we started with the traditional OCR.
Of course,
the one of the biggest, bottleneck is that either you have to, either the tech has to support a known document type, or we have to train by artificially synthetically generating data, images and all of that, and say this is the portion that I want to do that. But then AI, I mean, one of the first use case of the AI was just kind of looking at the W-2 employer and then matching it with what it is which we found, and putting the title and then matching it with found. And surprising thing was like, think about a use case, right? You say, I am like a product leader at the company, but your title becomes like program manager, right? Is it a bad deal?
Yep.
It's the kind of, human judgment that have to take place. But AI is pretty good at mapping different job titles and then figuring out that, is this document belongs to this? Did you really work for all this time, or is it just two pieces?
That's really
and
interesting.
also for so document verification and like understanding the document was one of the biggest use case. And then the biggest part I would say is like the backbone of why Checkr is an ML and AI company first is you're dealing with text data. So every company has a use case for, code generation, documents, marketing campaigns, and all of that. Then if your company deals with text data, you cannot survive in this market not being a ML and AI company. Specifically, this text is not natural language. It's a complicated legal, text, criminal data, thousands of codes and arrest records, and displaying that. So we have to have a Gen AI solution,
really cool.
Mapping and understanding those legal statutes and text and classifying them into meaningful summaries and buckets that people understand.
Totally makes sense. One of the things I find really interesting about this use case for you guys is obviously, it's very sensitive, right? Figuring out what someone's background charges might be. That matters. It's very high stakes, actually. People make hiring decisions based on that information. So there's a lot of sensitivity about getting it right. And how do you make sure that the people actually using the product have the ability to understand that there's an LLM behind this? How do they interpret the output of the LLM? How do you manage hallucination risks? All that stuff. Really curious, how are you guys thinking about that for these very high stakes use cases that are literally customer facing?
Right. And I think this is basically a very sensitive topic. And I think the biggest success that, I think any company would see, including Checkr and other companies, is do not start with an AI use case for customer facing.
Right.
And do not start with a text generation that could hinder people's life or something like that.
Of course,
and simple examples we want to start with the use cases where, as we are learning about the potential of AI, is how costly is the mistake.
So true.
And any process which was human driven and we are replacing or augmenting with the AI, there's still human in the loop. And slowly, for example, title matching, right? Replacing title matching with the human ones to the AI ones, which is very, reviewed. We can review the combination of titles that are matched, prefetch it, pre-cached it, all reviewed nice and tight. And then as new titles comes in, we can, employ that. And, when we are not confident, we can have him in the loop. A very, I would say, a good use case for an AI, extremely low risk, extremely efficient, saves you money, easy to implement. So then that is why we have been firstly doing AI internally, just to make sure what we know and what we don't know. And that's why I think, up till now, we have been little resistance on so one of the things that we started is, having a process with a good panel in the company about a checklist of any ML, even ML. So if any feature ML and AI wants to roll out in a company, it has to go through certain I won't say hurdles, but certain processes just to make sure, are we using the data? Are we using the PII data? There's no PII data involved and so forth, right? So there's a bunch of stuff and security and legal and, ethics that we have to follow to do that. And even for internal. And, in
really smart.
In the state where, AI, there's a bill that is about to be passed is, whenever you're using an AI to make a people's life decision, there's a regulated environment. And that's why we started with boring use cases. Can we help detect anomalies in our data pipelines? Can we help a lot of the document verification with the human in a loop fallback processes.
Really cool.
And then can we just use AI to generate recommendations would you want to buy this package or this package? Like that. So it's an option. Maybe my recommendation is wrong and you click the third option rather than first option.
But you're still in control. The human's still in control.
Human's still in the control.
Makes so much sense. Yeah. I think one of the things that's always really interesting to me is I feel that whenever you're in an industry where the industry itself is really hot. It's like gets a lot of hype, it gets a lot of buzziness. It's in the news all the time. Very often, the correct way to approach that industry is what is the most boring possible thing I can do, right? And actually, like if you take that mindset, then you tend to get this like nice property where you filter out all the noise of the super buzzy demos and the stuff going viral on Twitter that doesn't work. And you can actually just focus on something really simple that's actually concretely valuable for, your users, your employees. And then you just tackle these boring things, and then you gradually build up from there into the more impressive things. And I feel like, even with traditional machine learning, there was all this stuff where people were like, you can predict everything, and you're going to build these like super impressive, like restricted Boltzmann machine, like models to predict whatever. And actually, typically what turned out to be valuable was like, okay, I'm going to spend loads of time cleaning up my data, right? And then just like using that data to do something very, very narrow, very niche, very specific, but that's actually useful.
Yep. Yeah, that's the same game. In machine learning, all the things about, funny story, right? Like when we are in college or university, we are given a data set.
Yep.
We start with a data set. And then we basically, focus our energy on models and models.
Right.
But in industry, we'd like to fix models because, which are supported in the platform. And then the real benefit you get with the data.
Right.
So there's a trade-off between data and models.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the AI.
So true.
You find, and that's how we started, because we know that, being in a novel, like imagine a Gen AI department who doesn't ship anything for 2 years.
Right.
Although we take a long-term strategic bets as well, but what my favorite thing to do, which every time I attend every meetings is there a lowest hanging fruit?
Exactly.
That I can just do it in less than a quarter.
Right.
And then find an impact for that, while continuously, keeping a milestone way on long-term projects and this and that.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right? You've got to have this view of what your long-term goal is, but then how do you move towards that long-term goal in a way where you're actually shipping stuff that's valuable this quarter and next quarter and the quarter after that, instead of spending 2 years like, in a research lab figuring out how you're going to fine-tune your model to do X, Y, Z. And then you find that actually 2 years later that the foundation models can do all of that themselves, right?
Yeah.
And you just wasted a bunch of time. So
and right, like humans, as through evolution, has shown that we are losing patience.
Right. So true.
So users, then that's why the Reels was born, right? Like nobody wants to watch a 30-minute, and then we went into, and the same thing with the sports. We started with 50 overs, 20 overs. Now everybody wants things immediately done, right? Like, millennial, another generation, everybody, they are not patient, right?
Yeah. The overs reference is a cricket reference.
Overs. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
2 folks from the subcontinent here.
Right. From 5 days to 1 day to 2020 to, I don't know, maybe they will have like a 5-minute game.
I'm sure they will. Yeah. Before long, it'll be like, 4. It'll just be the super over, right? 6 balls. That's
it. So, and although I think that's the same with the roadmap, right? Earlier, you would have seen that employee performance roadmap was like years, and now it's going to quarters, and then this and that. People, like, as the economy getting tougher, people want impact, or people want promises that this will be a right strategy decision, right? So money is not free anymore. You have to really play accordingly in this market on how do I generate value in the low-hanging fruits and the most impactful stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, I think, in the AI world in particular, where as a startup, you do see all of these companies raise these like crazy monstrous rounds, like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on bananas valuations without actually having, shipped any product, or certainly in many cases without having any revenue. And I think, you have to ask the question, is that actually in the best interest of the company, right? I think there's a lot of businesses out there that did that like a year ago, and the company hasn't done anything, right? And the founders have now left, or they've been hired by Microsoft or something like that, right? And was that actually the right choice? Not just from the investors' perspective. I mean, the investors are diversified in their portfolio. And so
Yeah.
what they do makes sense for them. But from a founder perspective, like, is that even good for you? Is a pretty open question in my mind. Cool. So one of the things I'm also really curious about, and I think the audience will find quite interesting, is the composition of the team. And, how do you create a Gen AI ML team or AI ML team that can actually succeed at doing the things that you guys do? Like, what is the skill sets you want on that team? How do you compose it? Who do you look for? Like, how does that process of formulating and empowering that team to succeed really look?
So this is very, very interesting, way to look at it. And every company is slightly different. But so overall, I think the talent is also moving in a very different direction.
Right.
So in any cases, like, companies like, so when I came in, I'm still hiring for, viewers who are watching. If you have interest in ML and AI, should me, apply online, or should us, through your resume on LinkedIn.
I will just say, like, one thing I can really vouch for is Checkr is one of the most advanced adopters of Gen AI and AI that I've ever seen. And we work with a pretty wide cross section of like very sophisticated, smart tech companies. These guys are way ahead of the market on adoption and what the team is doing. So.
Yep, fascinating, and blessed to be be a part of that journey. So my philosophy has always, so for example, right, what do a company want from an AI team or from any team?
Yeah.
So when a business problem comes, it doesn't really have a face of what technology it is.
Right.
The problem is a problem. And then when you're converting a business problem to a technical problem, then you realize, oh, this is an ML problem, this is an AI problem.
Right.
So one of the things that I started doing, which I've always done, is creating a diverse team of skill set.
Yeah.
And I've always very iterated as, we call it like a T-shaped team.
Really
so
cool.
What T-shape is basically means that in a small company that you have skills across everybody. And what are some data skills? There is, like, if you go to a big company, there's like 7 titles.
Right.
Data engineering, analytic engineering, data science, data analyst, applied sciences, research scientist, machine learning engineer, AI engineer, software engineer.
And member of the technical staff.
Right. Yeah. And then it's like 8 titles right there. Right. And if you have like, $3 trillion of revenue, you can hire a team of that.
Right.
But then how are you going to do that when, you are like a startup, right?
Right.
So you create a diverse, team of skill set, masters people of, even in ML, they are modelers, they are people who loves building evaluations or feature stores or, infrastructure to deploy those models like that. What we're looking for is, people with a great curiosity, extremely like soft skills, and then diverse team to set it up across different use cases. So when the business problem comes, I'm very confident that I have the team with the right skill set.
Right.
If it is stat, if it is experimentation, if it is ML, is an AI, I have all the tools, in my toolbox to be able to attack this problem in a most efficient way.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. I think that sort of framing of how do I get people that can actually solve business problems is my like number one thing, that obviously have the engineering and have the technical skills to do it, but actually approach the problem of, what is the business problem that I'm trying to solve, rather than how can I find a way to apply this like cool technology? That is a very, very important insight. And I wish more companies came to us with this like mindset of, we have these business problems to solve, rather than like, AI seems cool. Like, how do we do AI?
Yeah, I know. I mean, there are 2 types of people, like, solution-oriented people. You are having a solution in mind, and then you're thinking about the problem, or the vice versa. One of the things that, we have been doing without the AI, without the advent of the AI is, even like before we start down writing anything, we start with a 6-pager, what is the business problem? What are the technical requirements? Like why, what, and then we get to the how part.
Nice.
And then when you always start with this framework of why, and then without writing a code, if you flush down all the system design in the first place, then what exactly I need to do. Do I need more latency? Do I need more accuracy? Should I need a mini, or should I need like one of the things that we were discussing about, like, summarizing the legal text, like which model is good?
Yeah.
Like, too bad we didn't thought of the good design in the first thing, right? But then if we had like a good requirements doc in the first place, that I want to do this project under 10 cents per API call, and this is going to cost, latency of 3 seconds, I would have,
the answer,
the answer would be very different, right?
Really
So do it before, not do it after.
So are you guys using like lots of different models in production then? Like how much of your traffic do you feel like is ultimately well served, best served by OpenAI, or versus traffic that's like served by the open source models, the other closed source models, the Googles and the Anthropics of the world?
I would still say, going back to this thing is like, like there's a traditional thing like, wealth is what you don't see. But we say like, oh, wealth is what you see. I would say same thing is in AI, right? So when we talk about, oh, this company has 3 use cases, 4 use cases. So biggest beneficiary, I think with the AI is the AI that we do not see, the AI that you do not see.
Really cool.
Is when I look and go check off Credal users and how many times people are querying Credal, and it's defaulted to ChatGPT, conversational, is this knowledge graph. Most of the time, people are trying to understand what this is actually mean. They have a follow-up questions. All these things like a typical stuff of conversational with your enterprise data. This is basically, people are not talking about that. When I go to a meeting like today, there was something about an architecture which I had no clue. I opened up Credal and I said, what does this architecture actually project initiative mean in the company? What was done in the before? And I started giving my input to the discussion.
Awesome.
If Credal or if AI did not existed, imagine whom will I ping, this data, right? And this is the AI that you will never see. People who are like, so for all these models, you use GPT, you use, Sonnet, and this is where I think biggest value of Credal is. You can go in and you can change your models. Some of my questions are very thought out partner, and I use a one preview. Some of them are like, can you help me with the syntax of this Sonnet, and then come up this. So I don't have to open like 5 different tabs. Having one thought out partner, like it's like I have an army. I have a chef of cooks. Like today I want to eat continental, I will call continental chef, right? So this is where, having Credal is like having access to all the different like top chefs that exist.
I totally agree with that. I think that one of the things that's really interesting to me about this is that I feel like most of the enterprises we speak to are already really, really savvy about this. Like they want all of their LLM interaction to be easily swap in and outable. And that's very different, I think, to what happened in the cloud era, where with cloud spend, what happened is everyone just was like, okay, we're going to go to the cloud. Let's pick either AWS or Azure or GCP. And they picked one. And actually, probably most people just picked AWS because that was the only one that was available at the time. And what happened is today, those companies are waking up with their AWS bill and they're saying like, what, and the bill just goes up. These are big enterprises and they're used to being able to go to their vendors and negotiate them down. But it's really hard to negotiate AWS down because they just know that where else are you going to go, If you want to migrate, it's going to be like a 12-month migration process and it's going to cost you an insane amount to migrate. So one of the things that's actually been really cool, I think, has been this time around, enterprises have been much savvier about that and they're much less willing to really get locked into one foundation model that, may be the best for like one set of use cases, but not necessarily the best for all the use cases. And they're really taking a more like multi-model approach as opposed to the sort of cloud era where everyone really started out single cloud.
Yeah. Again, like it's like an iceberg, right?
Yeah.
People see, fancy Gen AI, stuff on the tip. But creation of co-pilots, we have so many co-pilots running. Earlier people used to ask us questions about a project. Now what we do is we basically create a richer documentation, create a co-pilot, deploy it to Slack, auto-enabled Slack. People ask like, what was this algorithm about, or where do we get this data from? And the Credal Slack bot is thinking, fetching the document and giving us the answer. We don't have to look at those responses. And so, and everybody's doing that.
Really cool.
People have created co-pilots on hiring in Canada. Like, so imagine you have a institutional knowledge, right? What you do, you create a document, you create a co-pilot, and you put it on the Slack, or you put it on different places. Now you have just democratized your information and saved ton of money.
So cool.
And then you talked about like, the Snowflake. The reason of one of the successful was that it was like cloud agnostic, right? So any company who will always be in this market, who's like, who will be a marketplace of every provider. Snowflake became like, what? Come to us, cloud agnostic stuff. Credal is like, you like Anthropic, and you like OpenAI, you like Gemini. Not sure, you want the flexibility to switch in and out, and you don't want your users to care about and procure 5 things. Having that one layer, to manage security, enterprise RAG, and ability to switch models and fast access to the API, no brainer, right?
Really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, you are a much better articulator of Credal's vision than I am. So I should obviously thank you for that. That's awesome. So a couple of questions just to round out. Firstly, obviously, other than Credal, like, what are your favorite Gen AI products that you guys are using today?
Basically, I think of, you should always think about, how is your product interface from the beginning, right? Any user, any product, a user comes in. So that's how we think about, when I think about holistically where the places ML AI is thinking, I'm thinking from a user's perspective till the end where the user's demands are met. Users create sign-up flows, right? Fraud detection. Amazingly valuable for a company to do that, right? Users enter. You want to basically give them options, recommendation, and trying to increase engagement by understanding users, personas and need. This is like, best use case for ML and AI, to get users what you want them to do versus what brings them the delight, including like personalized recommendations, building their packages, so that they can really order, get to the checkout really, really faster. Don't have to think about any process, right?
Really cool.
And then, then when something is submitted, then you are now under the enterprise boundary. Now, what is your goal? Can I serve customer request in a fastest amount, in the cheapest amount, in a highly quality, amount, right? And this is where the, having that AI in it comes in, is building your, layers on.
Makes so much sense.
Getting those requests, understanding different parts of your data or supply chain. Processing that request in the fastest amount of time period, and replacing manual, flows with the AI workflows. And then having that human in the loop to kind of serve that, right?
Really
so
cool.
If you think about, from customer journey, start from the customer, end at, shipping the order or whatever that thing means, and then doing it round and round and making it faster and faster.
Really, really cool. I mean, I think you just answered my second question there, actually, which was going to be, but maybe if you have anything more that you want to add. The second question was going to be, if you're like giving advice to someone who is starting out, like building an AI platform team, an ML AI platform team, what advice do you have for that person? Like, what are probably the most important things that you feel like you've learned from building, honestly, one of the most successful AI platform teams there is at Checkr? Someone who is responsible for driving AI adoption throughout the enterprise, right? Whether that is for employee productivity or in the product, or as you said, like kind of in the back end of the product. What is the advice that you would give for someone for how do you go from like a traditional enterprise or like a technology enterprise to like an AI enabled, an AI first enterprise? What are the sort of tricks or secrets for how you do that really, really well? What are the things that you guys have learned from going from, what a year and a half ago, you had 0 users, right, of generative AI to today, you've got, like a huge fraction, I think more than 80% of your company using it like continuously. How do you sort of drive that adoption successfully?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically, I have told my team like so this problem was I heard this problem before.
Cool.
Back in 2014,
Oh, wow.
where
Interesting.
data science was starting as a discipline.
Right.
And so I have been in this boat,
Really cool. Really
7
cool.
years back, right? It is anytime a new discipline comes in,
Yeah.
how do you prove your value,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And there are a couple of things that is required
Yep.
to prove your value, right?
Yep.
First thing is, I tell my team to think like always like a marketing person, right? Don't like your users, your company, your upper management are not interested or
in the technology,
in the technology,
right?
And then having a patience. And so one thing that I'm always loved about is building stuff. So you need to have conviction. So when I build my team, there's a lot of projects where we didn't officially get the support, because obviously it was too high value or doesn't understand. We still pursued it. And that's why I give 20% of my 20% of the time in other companies to build anything what you want.
Really cool.
And you have to build independent service, deploy in a shadow mode, and then slowly people will realize its value. And that's how I have been doing.
Really
when
cool.
I started at Microsoft with 4 people, went out with like a 40 people organization,
really
and
cool.
It was about proving incremental value and not getting discouraged with that, right? So that's why we picked the most low-hanging fruit.
Really cool.
Showcase, sell,
the
impact, get more funding. And this is exactly how companies do it.
Right.
They start with a niche, A,
Yep.
do it well, B, C, and then that's how they go it. And this is the same thing with any new division. So and now we are hiring because we have been successfully proven that we can operate and deliver.
Really cool.
But then I think the biggest part is that you don't want the problem-solving burden to be just on the team. So if you are like an executive leader of the company and you are like evaluating, should I hire a head of AI or starting like that, I would say, take a step back and see, is your processes very data driven?
Right.
And maybe, people who are in your company whom you can just transition and give them, convert them to an AI engineers. Start with that, because these are the people which have more context, right?
Cool,
Like I would come in and I have to re-understand the domain. And that's what exactly Checkr did, right? Before hiring me, Checkr basically, basically said, these are a couple of engineers, right, who have the domain knowledge. See if it's making sense, is it driving value.
So cool.
And then you basically showcase that, there's a couple of engineers who did this. I think there's a value we can, get to that thing. And then you should have amazing tools. And without right infrastructure, just people cannot help that. So processes, people, and tools makes the it's the 3 pieces of the triangle.
Really, really cool. And then a couple of fun ones to finish. When do you think AGI?
I actually don't know what, I know the definition of AGI keeps changing.
I mean,
from Turing test to something like that. But I don't think it's going to matter to the companies with us. And, I always say that, when I'm in the hackathon, I have to motivate 400 engineering people from Checkr to use AI. And I think my biggest analogy, which I put in a hiring post, was that when steam engine was, discovered or
really
invented,
cool,
Coca-Cola became the biggest beneficiary of the technology. So the biggest beneficiary of a technology is rarely the one who actually is working on that. But if you can utilize those technology to solve a real problem, which what Coca-Cola did, the supply chain of steam engine, and that's what my goal is. I clap when there is a new model. I clap when there is a new, cost goes down. All thanks to you and all thanks to the NVIDIA and all
the
of that stuff.
research labs,
I am not into, I'm like, can I utilize this for the use case of my purpose and then run with that?
Really cool.
So that's basically what I'm talking about, the use case, not the tech.
Awesome. Last question for you is, when you think about what is actually sort of in the future, in the roadmap for you guys, what are the things that you're most excited about building with AI or AGI over the next, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months?
Yeah, again, like I think so. I've created 4 workloads and 4 pods, as I said, and I am really looking forward to all the stuff that we will do on simplifying the data architecture.
Yeah.
And companies like Checkr
Yep.
relies on thousands and thousands of signals and sources and APIs as an architect to serve a customer request.
Yeah.
So that's one part that is absolutely handling that.
Yeah.
Imagine we have scrapers and parsers running all day scraping websites.
Right.
So this is all like AI, powered through AI.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest use cases we are like, I'm really looking forward is self-healing AI generated code.
Really cool.
So imagine you write a parser.
Yeah.
Using beautiful scope,
Right.
soup, right?
Right.
And then the parser changed the layout.
Right.
Your stuff goes again.
Right.
And this is something, we basically prototyped is, the code can be self-healed
Really cool.
based on the layout changes in that, right?
Really cool.
So that's our internal stuff. Support is, I would say, in any company, if you do not find a use case, I bear that you have not looked at support.
Right.
Customer talks in text, raises customer support tickets.
Yep.
Those tickets goes to departments.
Yep.
You want to quantify the emotion, sentiment.
Yep.
Like all the typical textbook use cases of AI, right?
100%.
I want to take maximum juice of the established use cases.
Yep.
That all my basics are covered.
Totally makes sense.
And then I want to tackle the actual real user with delight. Right now, we're trying ML algorithms like recommendations and fraud, but I want them to be converted to AI. I'm like really looking forward to those. And then one of the biggest use cases is with the multimodal AI.
Yep.
I'm rethinking, should I even need an OCR, or can I have a cheaper AI just reading the documents and verifying stuff for me?
So true.
And then I can just have the humans in the loop and read these processes.
Amazing. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Muskan. Any last things you want to call out for the listeners, LinkedIn or a website or a call to action for the audience?
In any career, specifically ML and AI, I think if you find a good business problems to solve.
Yep.
Now the question is, where do you find those business problems, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think I encourage people, either engineers or scientists, like you should grok your company goals and priorities and roadmaps and strategy and all of that. So you can know which are the good problems because you are closer to the data and the technology. But you need to understand what the business goal and the right objectives are.
Yep.
If you just get the right problem in hand, you have the toolkit.
Really cool.
You can create wonders.
Really, really cool. Thank you so much, Muskan. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.